welcome back. Outside Minds podcast. Because you've already seen too much, bro.
They only added it so it could be like a ritual.
They're saying there's these, the end of times, right? There's all these signs.
Do you think we would know? Like, do you think the general public would know this game?
Take a picture for $5. You have a purpose in life, and if you don't fulfill it, you will come back until you fulfill it.
And welcome back to another episode of the Outside Minds podcast. I'm Stilo Free, and this is my co-host,
Todd Cave.
and we got an amazing guest today. Shout out to Sam Tripoli at Tinfoil Hat, and shout out to Mark Steves. My family thinks I'm crazy. This guy has been a good guest on both of those podcasts. Go check them out. His name is Todd Cave. Go ahead and let them know where they can find you, and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me on your platform. Thanks for listening to those two podcasts I did. So anyone can find me at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave. So at Adriano_246. Let me say it again. At Adriano_246 is my Instagram, and Todd Cave on Facebook. And then I have my own podcast as well. You can find me on the Conscious Man 7 podcast, available on all major platforms, but I upload to Spreaker. So if you want to get first tips to hear me, then check me out on Spreaker.
Nice.
And yeah, a little bit about me. I was born in Barbados, and
Nice.
When I was there, I had a normal childhood and stuff, and I wanted to be a civil engineer. So I went to the UK and studied civil engineering, and I was a civil engineer for quite a few years. And then 2017, my life changed. I had life-changing surgery on my foot, which caused a series of dominoes in my life to fall, and basically put me on the path that I am on now, because pretty much everything was taken away from me of value.
Wow.
And I basically, I call it my refinement period. Other people call it the dark night of the soul.
I was just
Same
going to
thing.
say that.
And I call it my refinement period because when you extract gold and you want to purify it, you have to refine it. So you heat it. And the first set of impurities, then you get to 14 karat. Then you heat it up again or higher. It gets to 18. Heat it some more, 22 karat, then heat it to some more, 24 karat. And then if you want to go to the next level, which is monatomic gold, you heat it even more. And then you end up going into superconductor territory and stuff like that,
Yeah, that's the refinement of gold process. A lot of spiritual traditions also kind of liken it as well to the alchemical process, which is what that reminded me of, which is turning base metals into gold as well. So, what's that?
But but this is why I call it my refinement period, because I've been refined to the point where like I ended up talking about these things, because I remember when it was first coming into all of these things, like I was just trying to find out, well, what's the purpose? Like, why am I finding all this information? Why am I able to retain all this information and stuff? And
do you feel like it was because I was listening to on your podcast, and there was a book by Zachariah Sitchin that I think your dad said you gave to you, and you ended up reading it 9 years later. So do you feel like you've been kind of guided towards these things, and these things have been kind of put in your life path in order for you to follow a certain way?
Absolutely, I do think so, because when I started to find out all these things, basically I just started to find one book after the next. And what it was is that at the time, YouTube was still decent because Trump had just got elected. So the censorship was not as bad as it is now.
People don't understand, man. People do not understand. I'm glad you said that little tidbit in there, but continue.
Yeah, so what would happen is like you would read one book and then you would get a recommendation, and then another one and another one. And then the podcast that I used to listen to at the time, people like Rex Bear, like Leap Project, I learned a lot from him. The Global Witness, now the channel's called The Willing Witness. And there was another guy called Gerald Clark. He was the guy that taught me a lot about the Anunnaki stuff and books to read, etc. And the Lost Book of Enki, which my father had given me. This was one of the books that kept coming up all the time in all of these shows to say, well, at least start there, because, I mean, the thing is, right, is that people like to give Zachariah Sitchin a bad name and say that he was a shill, he was a Freemason, this and that and third. And what I say is that, look, Zachariah Sitchin may have been a Freemason and he may have had maybe some checkered past. But what I would say is that the information that he put out, when you look at it from a high level, it causes you to question things. And I think that's the key to this whole thing, because I find that a lot of people that are in this space, they get hooked on the thing of trying to have the absolute truth. And the thing is, this genre of information, we will never know 100% because we were not there. We will not have 100% confirmation that everything we say is true. We will not have all the records because things like provenance cannot be verified. So
well, just to stop you real quick too about the Freemason thing, a lot of people think Freemason equals automatically bad.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, some of the knowledge and some of the stuff that they research and the symbolism they go by, that's the stuff that I find myself researching into when I'm looking for truths and stuff. So you got to be careful. I tell people they got to be careful with just equating Freemasonry to just something that's bad, because even though there's Freemasons that may be, you know, responsible for some crazy things, you know what I mean? That doesn't automatically mean that, you know, you have to shut out whatever information that can come from studying those kind of things. But yeah, continue.
Absolutely. And what we have today is an all or nothing approach. It is seen in politics. It is seen in religion. It is seen in the public discourse. And what we have is, if someone, okay, let's take a character that also helped me to understand the world we live in, Alex Jones. Now, Alex Jones got, I would say, about 96% of the things correct, right?
Yep.
And the 4% he's thrown under the bus for. Now, you can call him sensationalistic, you can call him an agitator, you can call him many things, right? And most of those things can possibly be true. But the thing is, right, is that 96% of his stuff was legit. And because he got 4% wrong, people will say, oh, he's rubbish, you shouldn't listen to him, he's got zero credibility. And I think that's the wrong approach, right?
The bad always outweighs the good.
Humans.
The bad always outweighs the good, you know, in humanity. They remember the bad stuff no matter how much good you do.
Exactly. So my attitude is like, okay, the 4% that he got wrong is okay, because I get stuff wrong as well myself. But what I would say is that he's been right about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you do with the things that he was right about? It's the same as Zachariah Sitchin, right? Some of these stuff Zachariah Sitchin got correct and other things not. So is everything that he said wrong? No, that's the wrong approach to use. So I think that we suffer with this sort of dichotomy where, for example, look, we just had elections in the United States.
It's really polarizing. It's the bipartisan system, and I've been preaching this to everybody that it's super broken. And not only that, but like a lot of like media personalities and like YouTube kind of people, they're not going to support you if you're in the middle. They're only going to support you if you're extreme right and extreme left, because that promotes the divide between us. They want us to be polarizing, because if you're a Republican, that means you're a racist. That means you don't believe in women's rights. And same thing with the other side. If you're a Democrat, that means, you know, you want to abolish the police force or whatever. When it's like, most people just want to fucking, you know, have a good life and take care of their family. You know what I mean? So most people are right down the middle, but everything has just become so polarized that when it becomes election time and shit, people don't want to talk to each other if they find out they're voting for the opposite candidate, which is crazy to me, because it's like,
so crazy.
In a week or two, people are not going to care about it, and we still have to live and work with each other. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm just reiterating your point. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's insane, right? It is insane. And the thing is, right, is like, there's some things that Donald Trump says that make sense and other things that don't make sense, right?
For sure.
Exactly.
I don't understand why we're not able to say, okay, well, I agree with that thing. And this is actually my approach now when it comes to politicians and leaders. I don't use the word support. I say I like certain things. I like this. I like that. And this I don't like. Because when you support, it means that you're on board with everything. That's what the word really means, right? In this context. So I think we are using the wrong words as well in our vocabulary. So
words are
some things
powerful
that
too.
make sense.
Yeah, words are powerful.
But yeah, he says some things that made sense. I mean, like, for example, people talk about, oh, well, he's xenophobic, but this is the thing, right? Like, the man has a point. And the reason why I'm going to say this is because I used to live in England, and we have the exact same problems, right? If you let in massive amounts of people into your country illegally, right? Or even legally, you just have non. In our case, in Europe, most of the time it was just legal immigration through asylum and stuff like that. And when you have loads and loads of people coming in, there's no time for assimilation, right?
Yeah,
So what we have in Europe is an Islamic Muslim problem, right? Y'all don't have that problem. Y'all have other types of problems, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And you have wave after wave after wave. Let's put it this way. According to statistics, Sweden, which is a European Western country, by 2050, 30% of its population will be Muslim. Wow. 30%.
That's crazy.
Right?
We could honestly, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. We can go down, we can talk hours about this, but let's swerve away from that because we don't want to get too political on this episode. But that's not to say that we don't agree or whatever. But let's swerve back to your life story, because I know you said you kind of had like the dark night of the soul, or a period of your life that kind of turned you back to your spiritual path and some of the books you're reading. Can you tell us about some of the books that you read and some of the ones that kind of more influence the research you're doing now and the work you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So one of the books that I read many books, but one of the books that I first started with was the Lost Book of Enki, and then I started to read the Nag Hammadi. I read things like Pista Sophia. Then there were other books like the Kabbalion, the
That's a good one.
the Hermetica,
Okay.
the Corpus Hermeticum. Then there were other books like the Richest Man in Babylon, because that showed me that money is basically an energy. I read books like the Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. Now that is a fantastic book that most people that are into this genre of information have never read.
Can you say that again?
The Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. It's a very, very, very long book. If you do audiobook, it's like 24 hours.
I'll do that while I work because I like
check it out.
listening to podcasts.
Yeah,
and
I'm reading.
books while I
I'm
work.
reading autobiography of a yogi right now, but a few of those books I resonated with. I read the Kabbalion. It's pretty good. I haven't got to the Corpus Hermeticum, I think it's called. I haven't gotten to that yet. But yeah, I remember you talking about what's the Zachariah Sitchin book?
It's called, well, I read The 12th Planet from him. I also read the Lost Book of Enki. The Lost Book of Enki was the first book.
Okay.
I like that book because in that book, he shows the parallels with the stories in the Sumerian tablets, with the stories in the Bible.
Let's talk about that. Can you briefly explain to us about how those parallel to like the creation myths and stuff like that, and how that actually influences like Christianity today, and how some of the Anunnaki or the fallen angels, so to speak, influence the consciousness and the reality of the world we live in today? First, real quick, before you do that, are you a simulation theory guy?
I lean towards it.
Okay.
But what I would say is that no one actually knows for sure. Right?
Okay. Yeah,
So
absolutely. But
anyone that's telling you
can we-
100% that it is what it is, 100% that the earth is wrong, or 100% the earth is flat, we don't know, right? All we have are theories, right? And we have people that hold these theories like their religion.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, so let's get into the Enki stories and the Sumerian myths and how they parallel the stories in the Bible.
Well, sure. So you have in the Sumerian tablets, you have the creation story, and the creation story basically comes out to the 7 tablets of creation, which are the Babylonian epics and the Babylonian myths. And these are a combination of actually texts as well. And it talks about how basically these Anuna gods, they created man. And when they were trying to create man, like one of the tablets is the Enuma Elish. And in the Enuma Elish, it talks about how they basically created man in a laboratory. When they were trying to create man, they did a lot of experiments where they mixed animal, human chimeras, plant, human chimeras, animal, plant, chimeras. It was a lot of experiments. And basically what happened is that to get the experiment to hold, they used clay jars. So this is where the story of God breathing life into clay. Well, the original story is that they were using clay jars. Basically, it sounds like test tubes, and they mixed their DNA with the existing hominid species that was on Earth. Because
Wow. This is heavy stuff. We're following though.
Yeah.
Keep going.
because the thing is, right, is that what we have is a narrative that we evolved from monkeys is actually a half truth. We didn't actually evolve in the sense of the way they're portraying it. What it is that we evolved to be like that. It wasn't this like gradual. What it was is that these Anuna gods came.
It was a modification, if you will, right?
Correct. It
Like
was actually a
Theo Von
genetic
said, where are the
modification.
half monkeys? You know, if they're
But
stages.
because in the same Sumerian tablets, what happened is that when the Anuna gods came here, they brought their worker class beings called the Agigi or the Agigi, depends on how you want to pronounce it. And the way the Anuna gods are, you can look at them as like the heads of state, the royal family, the politicians, is the upper class of these people. And when they came here looking for resources. And the Agigi, who were the working class, the blue collar crowd from their planet, they were doing the hard work. But what happened is that after a long time, they got tired of doing all the work, and they said, like, "Hey, we didn't come here to be slaves, we came here to help out, but we didn't sign up for this." So they actually they rebelled, and they formed a mutiny, and they were going to go to war with the Anunnaki. They dung their tools, they burned them, and they were surrounding Enlil's fortress. And what happened is that basically the Anuna gods got a little bit nervous, and Enki, who is Enlil's brother, he said, "Look, I've got a solution here. There's an existing hominid species on Earth, and we can fashion a being to do the hard work." No, they didn't use the word slaves or anything. Just said we can fashion a being to take the labor from the Agigi, right? So what they did is they basically
Kind of like AI.
But yeah, what they did is that they took the existing hominid species, they injected their DNA with some tweaks,
Okay.
and then they created us. Now, in the Enuma Elish, it says that they actually did incantation, and what they did is they sacrificed one of their own gods, who was a Gigi called Ilawela. Ilawea, he was sacrificed, and his blood was basically shed to create us, according to this tablet, the Babylonian Enuma Elish. They did an incantation, and they transferred the spirit from his body to the Frankenstein that it was, right? And that's what it was. Then you have other tablets like the Atrahasis that it just says that they mix their essence with the existing hominid species. And what they did is that they took a female egg, they inserted their DNA with some modifications, created a zygote, and what they did is that they did in vitro into Isis or Inanna or Ishtar is another name.
Okay.
And there's
Okay.
actually a tablet with Isis with her hands of a baby in the ear. She's saying,
And
"My
quick
hands
question,
made
just a
it."
quick question, just to cut to what we're gonna talk about later. These Anuna gods, or like the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki. These what is my question? These are some of the kings on the Sumerian kings list, right?
No.
Okay, so these are different. Okay.
So on the Sumerian kings list now, you will see that there are eight kings in the beginning. They call them the eight immortal kings.
Okay.
And they ruled for 241,200 years. Now, when you read the tea leaves, it is sort of understood that these beings were actually the first set of hybrids that were created.
Oh shit. Okay.
Because the first king was called Alulim. He ruled, I think, for was it 16,000 years or something like that.
Okay. So I just wanted to stop you real quick before, because I know you can get back into that rabbit hole, but let's get back to the what you were talking about before. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail you or anything like that.
Well, yeah. So basically, they created a being, and basically, I would say that on the Sumerian kings list, like Alulim, he ruled for 28,800 years, so eight shars. And the reason why I say that he's probably a hybrid is that there is a tablet called the Myth of Adapa. And Adapa, this is Enki on the first page of this, when you read it in book form. Basically, he's saying that I made you to be the best of the Anunnaki, right? So basically, the word Anunnaki really means from the bloodline of Anu. So if Enki is Anu's son, and Enki is the father of Adapa. Now, Adapa is actually the race of beings, right? So Adapa, Adama, Adam is the same thing.
Yeah.
It was actually a race. It was a group of people. It was the first group that they made, which is called the Adapa or the Adama. And the DNA is direct lineage to Enki, because Enki used to have sex with the females, right? And impregnate them. So, yeah, because Zayasudra in the tablets, also known as Unapishtim, he is the story of Noah, right? He's the Noah character in the Bible. And Zayasudra, Unapishtim, is Enki's son, right? Because he's a half, right? So this is why Zayasudra lived for a very, very long time, because in the Epic of Gilgamesh, while Gilgamesh was searching for immortality, he found Unapishtim. Right?
So we have all these parallels with these stories in the Bible. So basically, we're starting to learn that basically the Bible is a retelling of these stories and basically like remixes of them. Can you explain to us why that timeline would happen like that? What would the people who have created the Christian religion or people who have put the Bible together, what their purpose would be in order to do that?
Well, when you look at it, the Bible was just an amalgamation of many ancient texts, and it was handpicked. It was handpicked to create a narrative. What people fail to realize is that religion has a doctrine which creates indoctrination through narratives and dogma that you're not allowed to question, right?
Yeah.
So what you see is that at the time, there were many books, especially Gnostic texts, which were very, very against the things that came out of the Christian religion when it was created. Because
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do want to talk about Gnosticism, but continue.
Well, when you look at it, at the time when Constantine was the emperor, they used to have a Roman pantheon of gods with Jupiter and Isis, Venus, and all these kind of other gods. So what was happening is that Christianity was actually taking over in the Roman Empire. So you have to look at the politics that was going on at the time.
That's true.
And a lot of Christians who were not actually called Christians at the time, they were called Gnostics at that particular time. But when Yeshua was first on earth and after he left this earth, they used to be called followers of the way, right?
Okay.
And the church was actually just a group of people that would be meet together and teach each other
and talk about ancient traditions and stuff like that.
Talking about traditions, healing, teaching consciousness, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then later on, those people became the Gnostics.
Nice.
So what was happening is that those people were being fed to the lions by Constantine and the Romans because they didn't want to convert. So if you have a massive percentage of your population converting to a religion, then the politics would determine, well, look, you need to infiltrate that religion, or you need to align in some form or fashion with that religion in order
that
to
makes
keep
sense.
the empire going, right? So it was actually a narrative, and what they did is that they merged a lot of the teachings with their old pagan festivals and their old pagan rituals. For example, Christmas, which is supposed to be the Mass of Christ, in fact came from the pagan festival Saturnalia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do your
Saturnalia-
research, folks. Do your research.
Yep.
Saturnalia was a festival where you would go there, do massive drinking, eating, orgies, killing, stealing. It was just a festival for just going all in and pure debauchery, right? That is the original roots of Christmas.
Wow.
Right?
They invert everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what they did is that even the whole thing for Easter and that stuff, this is actually veneration of Isis, Ishtar, Inanna, the same character, right? So what they did is that they put in a lot of their pagan rituals and ways, just like even worshiping on Sunday, because they used to worship the sun god. But the thing is that it was not the sun as people understand it, because it is actually solar cult worship, which is the worship of the black sun, and the black sun being Saturn.
Yeah.
Saturn being also referred to in the Bible as Remfran, which is in Acts 7:43. Right?
Look it up.
So,
Look it up. Look it up.
So basically, what you have is solar cult, Saturnalian, Saturn, Satan worship. And I would say that this god who is taking that moniker is really Marduk, which is actually Enki's son.
Yeah, and it just
He
gets
is-
recycled through different frameworks. That's all that
Yes.
happens. It just gets remixed, right?
Yes, it just gets remixed. And Marduk, Amun-Ra, Remfran, Moloch, Baal, he's the one that's actually controlling Earth now. And he loves child sacrifice, and he loves sex slavery, and he loves all of these kind of things.
That's
right?
crazy. So let's bring it back to let's bring it back to Gnosticism, because I want to talk about real quick. Have you researched the Yuga cycles at all?
I've done a little bit of research on them, and I think they're 4 Yuga cycles, and it kind of goes into tune with the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and then the Iron Age, where we are now, which would be like the Kali Yuga. But even then, in those, there's like half Yugas, which are like transition points as well.
Yeah, reason I bring that up is because when I was checking out the Sumerian Kings list, the numbers of the years I was seeing on the Sumerian King list was directly correlating with some of the years that they say are in some of the Yuga cycles, which is like basically 432. 432,000, 434, 4,332,000, but basically 432. Some of the other numbers like 28,800, which is like 288 hertz. So basically, these are like 432 hertz, 288 hertz, 360 hertz. These hertz, which are healing frequencies, are corresponding to the timelines that are on the Sumerian Kings list, as well as the Hindu Yuga cycles. So I was wondering if you were, whenever you looked up the Yuga cycles, if you ever made that connection between those numbers and what you thought about it.
No, I didn't make that connection, but I am not surprised, because the Hindus, the gods of the Hindus, are actually the same Anuna gods.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's what I was gonna get to. So back to the Gnostics. The Gnostics interpret the Adam and Eve story as it relates to the fall of human consciousness. So I'm starting to get the idea that the Sumerian Kings list is speaking more about collective human consciousness, kind of like the same way that the Yuga cycles are, because the way they're describing the lengths of time. And with that being said, I got that idea because when it says the first line is like when the kingship descended from Erudig, that's the Garden of Eden, basically. And the Gnostics relate the Garden of Eden to a perfect state of consciousness. So I started to get the idea that maybe the Sumerian Kings list is actually describing collective human consciousness and its descension and ascension through ages and periods of time, which every ancient advanced civilization was hell-bent on making sure that they wrote down and they had the information of what happens to collective human consciousness over periods of time. So you being someone that's very knowledgeable about the creation myths of the Sumerians and the Sumerian King list, I was just wondering and curious what you thought of that point, and if you might be able to add anything to it.
No, the thing is, it is not a point that I have looked at, but I can understand the point of view, and it does make sense. The thing is, right, is that what I am learning is that truth is multidimensional.
Yeah.
Truth
Yep.
is multifaceted, and there's so many different types of interpretations that you can have, right?
And that's where syncretism comes in too. That's what trips me out,
and
really.
So the way you've described it, it resonates with me because it makes sense. And I didn't look at it like that. But what I would say is that what I'm realizing is that with these things, because we were not there, there's so many different levels of interpretation that you can have
Absolutely.
to extract so many nuggets. And what you find is that people, because they have one point of view, they tend to dismiss other types of point of views but for me, that doesn't make sense because, for a classic example, right? You're seeing red on this side, right? I am seeing dark on this side, right?
Yeah.
We're both telling the truth, right?
It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Correct. It's just a different side, right? But it is the same item we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Well, I like you because you study all these different ancient religions and texts, and instead of trying to pick apart the differences between them, you're looking at the parallels. You know what I mean? And that's what makes truth ring true for me, because the other reason was that when I'm looking at the number 288,000, I'm also thinking that not only are all these numbers divisible by 3, 6, and 9, which are the Tesla numbers, but also half of 288 is 144. And in the Bible, you get the 144,000, which is basically, all the people that are going to be able to make it into heaven. And not only that, but when you look into the long count of the Mayan Aztec calendar, the long count is like 144,000 days or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to note that the first Mayan calendar popped up around 3100 or 3200 BC, which is when I think the first Sumerian tablets popped up as well. You know what I'm saying?
But I can show you something now. 4, 3, 2. 4 and 3 is 4 plus 3 is 7 and 2 is 9.
Yeah.
1 and 4 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9.
Yeah.
9 is actually the number of the Father, right? Which is actually the infinite, the immutable, the ineffable, right? And my take on it is that the 144,000 is allegory for us going into our God self, we becoming the God man, because this is the thing that people don't really get. Men are actually mortal gods, and gods are immortal men, because we all are God.
We're the balance, basically. We're the balance between matter or body and spirit. We're the container. So we have the ability to ascend our consciousness to that level, but we're at this material level and shit, which is basically what Gnosticism is all about. Which is why I really get into Gnosticism and I pay attention to it. And I also think that Gnosticism and the ideas in it, that's why I asked you about simulation theory, because I feel like all that goes together. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And the thing about it is that these sacred geometry is really what creates the universe.
I was gonna ask, what's your take on psychedelics and sacred geometry? Because I've done DMT. I love mushrooms. You know, I've dove in all that, so I've seen a lot of crazy stuff that connects, and yeah, it's interesting.
Well, psychedelics is something that I have used extensively in the last 5 years, and has really, really helped me to be the person that I am now, where I've had a lot of insight, I've had downloads, I've connected with my higher self and to source, and basically what I am doing now is because I've been guided to, right? Because you asked me if I felt like I was guided before, and the answer is yes, because honestly, I could never do this on my own. I was shown and led, and many times where, like, honestly, I gave up doing podcasts and stuff, you know, right?
I had a similar story, and then something caused you to go back to it, right?
Yeah. I had given up, right? And basically this year, someone just hit me up and asked me to come on their show, and that started again. And it was at the right time in my life where I was just like, you know, I was still searching for answers, and, you know what I mean, not feeling like I'm actually really contributing and helping in this work, right? Yep. Because, you know, we all get a little bit despondent with things in our life, and that basically started the process for me having my own show. That led to me being on your show tonight.
Yeah. By the way, We did a lot to make this happen. Todd has to go to
Yes.
work. I'm taking a 5-hour lunch break. Are you over in England still, dude? I don't know
No,
what
I'm in
time it is,
Mexico
but it's
now.
5:30 p.m. for us. What time is it for you, dude?
8:30.
Oh, shit.
okay,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sacrificing to be on the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Late.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's not a problem. I like doing podcasts. I like sharing this information. It is something that, like I said, I just grew into like my old job because I was a civil engineer for many years, and I remember my second last job, I used to do something called the project managers meeting. So every Friday, not every Friday I would do it, but I would say in 5 years at that company, I did it probably about 100 times. You would just get up in front of a group of people and just do a presentation for 10 minutes and talk about what's going on in your section of work.
Okay.
So I ended up just getting very, very comfortable just talking in
the
front
confidence.
Yeah.
of people. Yeah, because
It's funny the things that you learn earlier in life that are giving you the tools to really do what you really need to do. You know what I'm saying?
this is it, right? So this is what like
Yeah,
it's
there's no
kinda, like,
coincidences.
mad, where
Yeah.
I do feel like there's a presence with me that like guides me and points me in the right direction and stuff. And I'm very humbled and blessed to be able to walk with this presence. And like when I do psychedelics, I tell people the voice, right? Or sometimes like the voice comes in even without even doing psychedelics, right? I can't describe it any other way than the voice.
Yeah.
And it's my own voice, and it talks to me and it tells me what to do. And I just try my best to listen, and to do, because what I'm realizing is that there are things that we cannot really explain, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And in this field of information, there are a lot of things that we can't explain. We have theories, and anyone that is going to come and tell you that they know 100% that this is the case is not really telling you the truth, right?
Yeah.
We have a hypothesis based on information, and you connect dots from reading various tablets and texts and books and cylinder scrolls and doing psychedelics and stuff like that. But we will not know 100% until the consciousness comes in, which is what is the allegory for the return of the Son of Man
Yep.
in Revelation.
The return of Christ consciousness.
Yep.
Right. The return of the Son of Man is the return of the Christ consciousness, which is us becoming our God selves. So this is where it says that as lightning flashes in the east, so shall it shine in the west. And what that is the elevation of human consciousness.
I heard
So-
just to stop you real quick. I heard you talk about, I think it was on Mark's podcast, about how this is a time where human consciousness is going to naturally be elevated, and some of us it's going to happen sooner than others. And that our responsibility, that we have the responsibility. Do you feel the responsibility to help others? Because I had a spiritual awakening around, I think it was 2022, and I definitely feel the need to be like, even like some of the music I was making and the content I was making, I was like, yo, I really got to make sure that, whatever message I'm putting out there and whatever I'm telling other people is really helping the collective consciousness raise up. Because when I had my experience, it's just everything's a simulation, and everything is basically as above, so below, as within, so without. So if you want to change something, you change it within yourself. And with that being said, like ever since I've been figuring that out, whenever I see someone low or on a different path, I feel like it's my responsibility to at least try to nudge them in the right direction within my potential. You know what I mean? Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yes. So the reason why
To stop you real quick, because you do classes and stuff, right? You can talk a little bit about that if you want to. I think you do like fitness classes, and you also have a spirituality program, like mentorship programs and stuff like that. I think if you can correct me and give a little bit of information on that as well.
Okay, so on the day job, what I am is I am an online fitness trainer.
Nice.
And I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. And how I do things in my programs is that, yes, I do teach people how to get fit. I teach them how to eat, but I also teach them how to improve their mindset, hack their mindset, how to connect to their higher selves. Because my take is that the body is a vehicle, the body is the vessel, and the body is the temple of God. And if you want the spirit to be recognized inside of your temple, you need to purify the temple and make it holy and pure. So you do that by getting the body moving and in shape, so that you're basically raising the vibration of the body, right?
Yep.
And by raising the vibration of the body, it means then that you will end up having to improve your mindset by default, because you're in order for you to get into shape, yes, you have to physically do exercise and you have to eat better food. But that is the second step. The first step is really the mindset, because the mindset is what will cause you to go to the gym and train even when you don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
The mindset is going to tell you, well, actually, you shouldn't be eating those Cheetos or these donuts today when you have food in your fridge that's already prepared,
Yep.
right? Or you know that you have a tendency to snack, do your meal prep on a day.
Yep.
So I was talking to one of my clients today, and she said to me, well, Todd, because she only now started, so I gave her a meal plan before, and she's now going to start to train, right? And she said, well, Todd, I feel so much better just after a week of eating. And she says, like, I can't believe, like, like I don't feel bloated. I feel good. Like, the food is nutritious and tasty. I said, well, yes. I said, wait till you start to do the exercise, right? And what I do is that I give her, like, and all of my clients, like, habits to do, right? And one of the things is meditation, right? And the reason is that meditation for the mind is what exercise is for the body. So in order to get into shape, you have to work on other parts of you at the same time, because
Absolutely.
we are what you call a mind, body, spirit complex. So what I do is that I help to get all three parts of you in shape,
Yeah.
mentally, spiritually, and physically. So when you start to get the body in shape, it means then you do that by creating new habits. So I set new habits for you to do that will
Nice.
create the environment for you to be more compliant. Then I teach you how to track your meals. So then now I teach you how food works. So I was showing her, well, look, on this day, you didn't have enough protein, but you ate more carbohydrates and fat. So what would, if you were hungry at that day and you wanted to eat more, the best thing to do is you would have a protein shake on that day
Nice.
now,
Yeah.
to be able to stick with your calories and to hit the macronutrient levels, which are your protein, carbs, and fats. So I was teaching her these things. I said, that, okay, well, on this day, you had your protein, but if you were a little bit peckish, you could have a little bit more carbohydrates. So what you would do is you would have things like strawberries or blackberries or blueberries, because these things now are having the carbohydrates, but they be low in sugar at the same time.
Okay.
So all of these are the things that I teach all of my clients now.
You're like
in
a
order to
scientist,
actually-
man. Oh my, you're blowing my mind right now, dude. I love it, dude.
Well, yeah, because the thing is for me is that I look at things from a holistic level, and because of my own personal journey, it has allowed me to be able to connect many dots. So, like, yes, when I do podcasts, I do talk about the other aspects of like our hidden history,
Absolutely.
but I'm also very much into health, fitness, and wellness. And to do that, you need to work on all three parts of you. So when you create new habits, you create new neurons in the brain. When you create new neurons in the brain, it means then that those neurons are firing together. Neurons that fire together wire together. So you're actually creating new circuitry in your brain.
New mentalities, new thought patterns.
Absolutely. So then now there are other things that I help people with in my coaching, where I get them to see that in fact what they're saying is actually not real. Because one of my other clients as well, and she was telling me, oh, Todd, well, I'm not sure if I have money and stuff like that. I said, okay. So I asked her, so she was telling me a few things about herself. So I asked her, okay, so is what you're telling me in the past, or is actually what's happening right now? She said, well, actually, that was last year.
Yeah.
And that situation is no longer present.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so then the story of you not having money, is that reality?
The
Or
is
that
well, she's
the story?
affirming it for herself, and that's the reality they get stuck in, because you're getting basically to the point that your thoughts create reality, and a lot of people I tell people it's a feedback loop. Your thoughts are actually creating the reality that is experiencing around you, but it's happening so fast that people are thinking that their thoughts are a reaction of the reality that's happening to them. So that's how they're living their life. They're living their life as my experiences are happening to me and I'm reacting to them, as opposed to let me react and be, like most manifest scientists say, be in a state of gratitude and, you know, feel the gratitude of already having it or already doing it. You know what I'm saying? So I love that you're biohacking people's mentality. Not only that, because you're a fitness guy. So like you said, you're not only working on the body aspect of it, but you're working on the mental and physical and spiritual aspect of it, which is very fascinating to me because it reminds me basically of the practice of yoga, basically. Because basically when you're doing yoga, you're not only stretching out your body, but you're also releasing emotions and you're trying to get in tune with, you know, you're trying to get your chakras aligned and you're trying to get in tune with your higher self, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I never looked at it like that, but that is pretty much what I do because, again, it is from my own personal journey that caused me to create my programs in the way I do. Because when I was going through my refinement period, I first started to read books and to come into this information as a way of escapism and a way to cope with what I was going through.
Yeah.
And then after a while, what happened is that the physiotherapist gave me the okay to start back training again. So what happened is that I couldn't do the same type of exercising that I was doing before because of the surgery I had on my foot. So I started to research then more. I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to find a way to get back the physique I had. But I have to be tight on the nutrition. Plus I was getting a little bit older and I was like, okay, boom. So I started to research nutrition and understand how it works. And I tried all different types of things on my own body and eating this way and eating that way and stuff. And then what happened is that there was a guy in my gym that he showed me a way that he used to train. And he was like 50 something odd and he was in fantastic form. He looked like he was 30. I was like, damn.
Like RFK?
Something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
So basically, part of his style of training, I have pulled into my program, right? And then because I tried that on myself and I was like, okay, this definitely works. And then I also found calisthenics, right, in 2019. And when I found calisthenics, I binged on it and I started to just do it. And then I was like, hold on a minute, I'm shedding a whole ton of fat here.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so maybe it was just me. So I beta tested it on one of my first clients. And he started to get really good results. So okay, that's it.
Nice.
That's it. This is all of my programs now. So I do a combination of weights and calisthenics.
Okay.
And it's called hybrid training. So you get the best of both worlds. You get to lift weights and get, you know what I mean, muscle mass. And calisthenics gets you strong and ripped.
Nice.
Right?
Nice. Cut the fat, right?
Yeah, I gotta cut the fat because at the end of the day, like this is what I say all the time. Your goal when you're training should be to burn fat and to build muscle. It's not to be going out there and doing loads of cardio. Cardio doesn't work, right? It frustrates you. It's boring.
It's gonna fucking make you tired.
And what it does is that over time it plummets your metabolic system.
Oh wow!
Because this is the thing that people don't understand about steady state cardio. Steady state cardio.
Does it require that much energy? So your body's trying to hold on to that energy when you eat it, and therefore it slows down your metabolism?
No, it's from a different way. So what it is that because it is at one level, what happens is that your body starts to get accustomed to that. The human body requires a lot of change in terms of exercise and doing things in terms of your eating to be able to keep getting results. If not, you hit a plateau. So over time, what happens is that steady state cardio eventually releases cortisol in the body, which slows down the metabolism.
Okay.
And because it is steady state cardio, if you go on a treadmill and you sit there and you run for half an hour, you've burned zero fat.
Wow.
What
cortisol can be good for the body if it's giving you cortisol, you know? Isn't that
over time. So long term, yes.
Okay.
Because what it is that steady state cardio burns calories and not fat. And what it does is that it pulls the glycogen in the muscles. Glycogen is the fastest source of energy for the body, and that's stored in the muscles. So what ends up happening is that after half an hour at least, sometimes it's an hour, depending on how your intensity. So you've burned a whole heap of calories, which are then replaced by your next meal. And what you're doing is that you're not doing resistance training, which stretches and tears the muscle to make it stronger, fitter, and then it burns more fat. This is why people that do a lot of cardio look very soft, placid, and loose. When you do weight training, yeah, that's the truth. When you do weight training, you're retaining your muscle mass. And in fact, resistance training is much more important for people as they get older than when they're younger. Because what happens is that bone density starts to reduce, you get plasticity in the muscles, you lose strength, you lose muscle mass. So what happens is that when you do resistance training in the form of weights or calisthenics, you are causing the bone density to be protected, because exercise does that. I mean, weight training. Secondly, you're increasing your grip strength, which is associated with longevity in life. And then also what you're doing is that you're forcing the muscles to maintain firm. This is why people that do a lot of swimming tend to have a good physique, because they're using their entire body, and their muscles they may not have like maybe super well defined muscles like a person that lifts weights and stuff, but they have a good body firmness. And that's what you need to do. You need to retain the muscle mass. So when you get into your later years, it's actually much more important to do than when you're younger.
You
But
hear that,
obviously,
folks?
if you start young,
Dude,
obviously, if you start young, you look young, for a long time.
Yeah, dude, you're like a freaking muscle scientist, man. I got to tap in with you about that. I got a little routine. I got a little intermediate muscle building routine. Maybe I'll run by you and join your program or something like that. But let's do a U-turn. Let's get back to spirituality and consciousness and stuff like that. If you could give, let's say, someone who's maybe like not even maybe like a white belt, but someone who's kind of like dipped their toes into like spirituality, hidden history, and kind of stuff like that, what would be 3 books you would give to them to check out? I don't know if I'll say my 3 first. I don't know if you checked any of these out. Well, some of them you have. I'd say the Kabbalion. I'd also say Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life. And then I'd probably say for the very, very beginners, 4 Agreements. I know you talked to that on a different podcast, but what books would you recommend, or what kind of information would you recommend to the people who want to get into like, Sumerian King's List or hidden history and kind of stuff like that?
Okay, so The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by John Velo Melchizedek.
That's a good one. Part 1 and 2, I read it. It took me about a year.
Yeah, that book is fire. So, wow. So only 3 books?
Yeah. Give us 3. Give us 3 beginners.
Whew. Okay. Okay. For sure, The Lost Book of Enki.
Okay, nice.
And that will get you to see the parallels of the stories in the Bible. Then I would say the Kabbalion.
That's a good one.
And then I would say the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, that's gonna be my next one.
I just got that one, so I'm about to start it.
We had another guest on a few episodes ago, which I had met from another one of Sam's podcasts, Zero, because I was gonna be on Zero one time, so I was listening to his podcast. But this guy, he met some of the Hare Krishnas, and he got into Hinduism and stuff, and he actually had a vision of Krishna. So he got on and he was telling us about how he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and the cool thing about that is the reason why CERN has a Shiva Shakti statue outside of their collider or whatever is because the Hindus and the Vedas get into quantum mechanics and stuff like that, which is very, very interesting. So the fact that you mentioned that book is very, very interesting. What made you say that book in particular? Is there anything in particular?
Yes, the story about attachments.
Okay.
So attachments are extremely powerful in this human form. And Krishna basically says that attachments are the single source of all suffering for humans. he was teaching his student Arjuna, and he said to Arjuna that you need to look at a piece of rock you need to look at a piece of gold the same as you look at a lump of rock.
Wow.
And he says that when you are able to do that, the same way that you can toss just a normal rock away, you need to be able to toss a piece of gold away.
Wow.
And he said that when you let go of attachments, you are able to get freedom from the entire system.
Stop being materialistic.
Yeah, letting go of the material world. All the spiritual traditions, they emphasize releasing the material world, releasing the need to identify with the material, releasing the need to identify with the body, releasing the need to identify with sex, which is why most, priests, monks that enter into a strict religious regimen will usually,
Be celibate.
be celibate.
Yes, and this is the thing, right? I mean, I've seen it in my own life as well, where attachments is the key thing. And look, I've been studying this for a long time, and I still I'm fighting like all of you listening to get rid of attachments. What I would say is that they're levels. So what will happen is that even if you're a black belt, they're levels of black belts, right?
Yeah.
So it is infinite. To
There
be
could
honest
always
with
be
you.
someone greater.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have 100th level black belt. You know, you can have 1,000th level black belt. They're just levels to this. Like this is like like Mill said, there's levels to this shit, right?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. So the thing is that it takes a lot of skill and mastery of self to be able to do that. And if I were to put another book to read, is actually a trilogy of books.
Okay.
And this is by Saint Germain.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah.
He's rumored to be an alchemist that actually is immortal, and also isn't he also either the creator or the person who discovered the violet flame, right?
He is the guardian of the violet flame.
There you go. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so those books were very, very profound for me. So the first book one should read is called Unveiled Mysteries. And then the next one would be the Mazit Presence. And then the next one is the I Am Discourse.
Okay.
And what these books show is that basically the same thing. You need to get rid of the attachment. You need to even get rid of the attachment of happiness, where like you will be in a state of happiness, but you need to get rid of the attachment to it, because in reality, you create the happiness from within.
Yeah.
So you have different terms for the same thing. So some people call it the Kundalini, others call it Christ consciousness.
Yep.
Krishna calls it the Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
And the fact is that Krishna and Christ are actually the same thing. They're the same.
It's the same idea presented through a different lens.
It's the same consciousness, because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is the Godhead Supreme Personality, right? And for people that don't know, the original word was Christos, which was Greek. Christos was translated to Latin, which became Christ, and Christos translated into Sanskrit is Krishna.
Yeah.
And he actually literally talks about Krishna consciousness. So it's basically the same thing.
The cool thing about Hinduism is that when you're getting the polytheistic deities and stuff like that, they explain it that these are basically splinters of God consciousness. And it's funny that, people who are Catholics or like monotheistic kind of point their finger and say that that's bad and you can't do that, when they have the same idea when it comes to saints. You basically have saints that are representing different ideas and virtues that are splinters of God, basically, whether it's, patience or protector of children or whatever. And that's the same idea as Hinduism, except they're not looked at as deities. They're looked at as saints or whatever. So I always thought that was interesting. You know what I mean?
Dude, Hinduism is super fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say that out of all of the religions we have on earth, Hinduism has the most keys in it for ascension and to upgrading spiritual consciousness, right?
Yeah,
now,
man.
like with everything else, there's corruption, because when you understand the story of Hinduism, basically what happened is that there were in the Indus Valley, because it wasn't called India or Pakistan at the time, it was called the Indus Valley. There were a group of people called the Dravidians. The Dravidians were actually dark-skinned people, kinky hair, some straight hair, but they were dark people. And there were some actual black people there as well.
Wow.
And the Aryans came in from the north, and the Aryans came in through the Caucasus Mountains, that side.
The Caucasians.
Well, yeah, basically the Caucasians, right?
Yeah.
And they came in through the north, and they pushed the Dravidians down south. And what happened is that the Aryans became the Brahmins, and the Brahmins are the ones that have the knowledge from God Brahma.
Okay.
And what happened is that they are the ones that created Hinduism, and in Hinduism there was a caste system that was created. So people think that racism has started only 500 years ago. No, racism was created in our present understanding.
Wow.
Through Hinduism.
Wow.
Through the caste system.
Wow.
Right?
That's an interesting concept. That's an interesting concept.
But dude, the Brahmins, if you look at it, are in Hinduism, are like the Brahmins are just Brahmins. You come from that line. Back in the nowadays.
Hey, goddamn Aryans coming down from the mountains trying to push us dark people down. God damn it. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, that has left a state of consciousness in Asia, Southeast Asia, of whiteness.
Yeah.
Where when you look at Bollywood, all of the actors are like
internal racism. Yeah. Same thing happens in the Philippines, dude. China, Japan, all that. Yeah.
Right. They call it colorism over there. And what happens is that the darker people were the ones that were doing the outside jobs and the field work and stuff. And the higher caste were basically the fairer skinned people because they would be inside, because they would be the managers.
They were the house slaves.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So everything that we have now, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just repetition. It's just different flavors of something, right?
Yeah.
So basically, Hinduism is super fascinating because what people don't understand is that there are things in the Vedas called the Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas are basically what they call floating cities, which are akin to spaceships.
Floating spaceships, right? Yeah. Oh man, we can do a whole episode on it.
Got to get you back on for sure.
Thank you for taking the time to educate us. Thank you for sharing your information, bro. Thank you for taking the time to rearrange your day and get on and help us out. Once again, this is Todd Cave, the man. If you need help online with your fitness,
follow him.
Hit him up, follow him up. If you look at his picture, he looks like a freaking Greek statue. You know what I'm saying? So
my name's Todd too.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead. We'll post your links right there. Go ahead and give them a little bit of outro. Let them know what else you want to let them know. Any projects you got coming up. Let them know your podcast or your show you got, or any links. We'll put them right here and all that kind of stuff, and give it to them, and then we'll send them out.
Yeah, sure. So, well, if you all like the information I shared today and you would like to hear more of it, you can find me on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. And but I also have some really good guests. I just interviewed a yogini, and we went into the spiritual aspect of yoga, because a lot of people don't really know that there's a spiritual aspect of yoga.
Yeah.
And all the things that I talk about, she broke down from a yoga perspective. So that was super interesting.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you read it yet. I'm at the right middle point of Autobiography of a Yoga. I don't know if you've read it yet, but if you haven't and you want another book to read, check that out. But yeah, continue. I'm sorry to cut you off.
And then also I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscles. So as you heard, we spoke a little bit about fitness, nutrition, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for a holistic approach to level up your life, because you will get into shape, but you will also improve your life, because the thing is that I coach people on a holistic level, and there's a lot of spiritual aspects that I cover. I teach my clients. And we're forming a great community of people just working on themselves, getting into shape, achieving their goals, reprogramming their mindsets and stuff like that. So you can hit me up on Instagram at Adriano_246.
Yes,
My
sir.
name is Todd Cave. Send me a DM. Tell me, you heard me on the Outside Minds podcast, and you're interested in getting into shape.
Yeah.
And then also, if you're on a spiritual journey or you want to start a spiritual journey and you would like to get some help removing some fears and traumas, I can help you to connect with some magic mushrooms. So again, hit me up
Tap
on
in.
my
Definitely
socials.
tap in.
Yes.
Highly recommend.
We love it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so hit me up. I can help you connect with some magic mushrooms. And then also, if none of those things interest you and you would like to support me in the work I do, I have a merch store as well on Amazon.
Nice.
And the shirt that I have on
Okay,
today,
okay.
Nice.
it's called "Truth Isn't Learned, Truth Is Realized." You can get shirts with some cool designs like that on my
Dope.
Amazon store.
Nice.
So link with that will be in this show as well.
Yep.
You can hit me up and
Yes, sir.
support the podcast, because the truth is that we need to support our independent creators and
Yes, we
people
do.
that
Yes.
are
Definitely.
putting their necks out there, talking about controversial stuff.
Yes.
And we do this as a labor of love, and help you all need to help us out so that we can keep giving you all fire content, keep improve our reputation, so we can get better guests on, and guests that help the whole community to rise.
Definitely.
So I'm very much part at this community, and they try to. This is why I agreed to come onto your show as well, because
Thank you so much.
day, we need to support each other, because a rising tide raises all ships.
Yes.
Nice.
The independent media, the podcasters will be the new media in the future, because the mainstream media is dead.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah. That's basically what this is. We're basically started this podcast to learn how to do podcast production, so we can offer independent media services to independent people.
Yeah, if somebody wants to do a podcast, we'll do it for them. You know, if people need their voices heard, we'll do that.
You guys heard it first right here on the Outside Minds podcast with Todd Cave, the Conscious Man 7. Check him out. Check his links out. Thank you once again. I'm Stilo Free. This is my co-host.
Dot 420.
Peace out.
Later.